Court Reporter with Stovall and Associates.
Hi, welcome to Court Reporter with Stovall and Associates. I'm your host, Mike Aglinski. Tonight's show, we actually have a town board member, Harley Culkin, back on again as a guest. Thanks for being in tonight. I do appreciate having you. It's always nice having you on. Anyway, the reason why we have back on is a couple of reasons. We wanted to talk about a few different issues that you've been involved in. One in particular, though, was an exchange at the town board meeting, and I don't have the exact date on that meeting, but that was just recently, the last town board meeting during the end of March, whereas the district attorney, Brian Kunze, in fact, had come to address the town board and talk about some of the changes that were being implemented. And you guys had what was kind of a heated exchange. So anyway, for all the viewers who haven't seen it yet, we're going to cut real quick, play that clip for you can see, and then Mr. Culkin and I will discuss what was the root issues involved with this clip. So we'll go to that clip real quick.
Unfortunately, there's been a lot of press and comment about these big conflicts between the town and the county. And I just, really wanted the opportunity to sit down and see some of the issues that, we deal with from the district attorney's office side of things that I think impacts on the town and where we can really work together. Because I think the one thing that I really want to state is that, from my perspective, there's no conflict here. We really represent the same interests. I don't care if you want to call it the town of Pahrump or Nye County. It's the same people we serve, and we have the same interests. And quite frankly, when you look at it from a standpoint of who does the attorney represent, the truth of the matter is the attorney represents the organization. We don't represent the individuals. We represent the organization, and really, what is that organization? And so I do think that, there's a lot that we can do to find some common ground and work together. And I guess in particular, I just hope that I can be a catalyst, for that to happen. Because I do think it's very important that, we can't live in a vacuum. We can't each live in our own vacuum. There's too many issues that we have to come together on, that we have to discuss. And I think it's important to do that.
Madam Chairman, Mr. Kunze would be great if he'd follow what he just said. I've left 2 messages in your office. You haven't returned my call. I asked you some questions tonight and you wouldn't answer. So that doesn't sound like what you just said, Mr. Kunze. See, I'm not afraid of you either. Okay. I ask questions. Mr. Kohlbarger, will you put an item on the next agenda, invite Mr. Kunze to come, and whatever questions we have, will you answer? If you know.
Harley.
I asked a question.
How many times, you and I have spoken many times, so I don't know how you think that, I've been avoiding you. You and I have had many discussions.
When I walk into you, but not when I left a message at your office twice, you didn't return my calls.
Have we not had discussions? Have we not discussed the issues that you wanted to address?
You're not answering my question. I left messages at your office, you didn't return my calls. You said if we contact you, you'll get back to us.
Harley,
I just run into you.
Harley, if I talk to you...
Excuse me, gentlemen, can you take this out to the parking lot?
Yeah,
we don't need to entertain the whole building.
All I'm saying is if you're going to say something, back it up, that's all.
Thank you, Mr. Kunze. Other than Mr. Culkin, are there any further questions?
Okay. So anyway, in watching that clip, there was, again, this exchange between yourself and the district attorney, Mr. Kunze. Can you give me a little background about what in particular you were asking Mr. Kunze for people that don't really know what pool pact is and why, in fact, you think that, it's one of those situations where you're kind of trying to draw out answers and you don't seem to be getting anything?
Well, I think the media's been rather deficient in letting people know what some of the liabilities of the county are, and some of those liabilities, should the public know, I think they wouldn't be so bad. Pool pack that you mentioned basically was evolved out of this. Some of the rural counties, Nye County especially, couldn't really get insurance anymore. They were too much of a liability and too many lawsuits.
So what you're saying is, in fact, that every county carries insurance for lawsuits when lawsuits are filed against them?
Right. To my knowledge, I mean, it could be, as an example, Clark County might be self-insured. I mean, they're big enough to certainly have a big pool to take care
Sure,
of.
sure. So we're talking about your rural communities.
But I think it's more like the rural counties, but I
Right.
don't know for sure. Haven't delved into it that much.
Understand.
I did talk to the person that came up with the pull pact idea, then the legislature approved it. So basically, the rural counties are kind of self-funded in this pool.
Mm-hmm.
And your premiums are based on your liability to this pool, as are the deductibles.
How are your liabilities calculated as far as your premiums that would be required?
Well, I don't know what their exact formula is, obviously, but if you have a lot of lawsuits, as an example, my county has 64, we saw in the paper recently.
Mm-hmm.
That's quite a lot of lawsuits for
Right.
a county that's actually kind of small.
Sure.
And so you take that 64 and you times it times $50,000 each deductible. That's quite a handsome chunk of change.
That's $3.2 million.
Now, I do know the county's premiums are $200,000 a year based on about 50 employees that we have, I believe.
The town's premiums.
Yeah, town's premiums.
The town's premiums are $50,000.
Now, the county probably has like 500 employees plus a lot more vehicles. The pull pack covers, your buildings, your cars, your lawsuits against employees and all that kind of stuff.
Does it also include lawsuits of employees against the county and citizens versus the county?
Yes, anytime the government entity is being sued by
Anytime.
anybody, it's going to cover that.
Gotcha.
So I'd imagine the county's in the many multi-millions, this county, in the premiums. Well, the premiums are really high because of all the lawsuits. And I have firsthand knowledge of how ridiculous some of these lawsuits are in the context of why they arose in the first place. I mean, I'll just say it plain out. In fact, Mr. Kunze told me that, and I like to normally say this, but I get a little credibility to things I say. He told me that he didn't give me an exact number, but he said that, yes, most of the lawsuits are because of the sheriff's office. And I personally have experienced false arrest by the sheriff's office. Mr. DeCanio experienced a false arrest by the sheriff's office. That's proven by, he was fortunate enough to go before a jury and so on. And this goes on and on.
Right.
In fact, I'll take this little opportunity to talk about Jesse Rock. People are outraged about some of the comments they feel that our assessor made in regards to Mexican Americans, but which most people don't know. Jesse Rock was a Mexican American. And he got beaten severely by two deputies. I talked to him and his mother. And that never made the media, and why that happened, and it was because of his ethnic background. And, so, of course, a good lawsuit came out of that because he was recovering from Iraq war injuries, and then two deputies worked him over pretty good.
Right.
And he ended up in the hospital. And so we believe that he must have settled because we can't get him to answer, Jesse Rock, we can't get him to answer phone calls, recently, but because whenever you settle, it's always keep your mouth shut and,
Right.
private deal.
Sure.
But these things are killing us. And as a taxpayers, we all have to be concerned because, it's like when I addressed the Senate committee recently, I told them that the town of Pahrump didn't even have a building of its own to hold a town board meeting because we had a roof failure. I mean, that's pretty bad.
Right.
And it's because all this money's being wasted. I mean, look at the pet money, $11 million a year they've been getting as long as I've been here, 17 years, that's $187 million, and they were getting it before I got here. Where is all this money? I told the Senate committee that the county's only given the town about $2 million, and oh wow, they claim now it's $3 million. Well, that's not even a dent in $11 million of 1 year, let alone 17.
That's true.
The people have a right to know what's going on here.
So
I and all elected people work for the people.
Let me ask you this, okay? So as a town board member, you have you have the ability to draw out information that say the average citizen probably can't in a lot of ways, or at least access to people with information. Is there any way for you as a town board member, or even as a citizen, to realize what these budgets are? I mean, are these budgets undisclosed? I mean, shouldn't they be public record?
Well, they are, and they're a little hard to obtain. Like, as a town board member, I only have a legal right to access things about the town. I have no more priority than you do to go over to the county and ask for information. So they're not real forthcoming.
Well, why is that? I mean, again, this is a government entity. This is being paid by taxpayers' money off public lands, revenues, whatever it is. Really, it is a government entity, though, and for the people, by the people, right? But yet we don't have full disclosure as far as profit and loss and expenditures for the county.
Well, they do have their budget meetings and stuff, but trying to get a hold of their budget book's probably a little difficult. I'm working on it. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm working on stuff. I want to know, as an example, how much money the county pays for those pull pack premiums. And And I also want to know where they have some money put aside, because one of the things that I hope to accomplish is not a community center, a convention center on our 400 acres of fairgrounds land. And I think it's time that the county steps up to the plate, gives us the money to build this thing, so we can help bring jobs and revenue into our community.
Okay, well, we're going to go into our first commercial break, okay? And we'll come back and we'll talk a little bit more about Pool Pack and a little bit more about, the situation that came up with the district attorney. And then we'll also delve into some other issues I wanted to go with you with. So we'll be right back after this commercial.
Court reporter with Stovall and Associates. Court reporter with Stovall and Associates.
Hi, welcome back to Court Reporter with Stovall and Associates. I'm your host, Mike Iglinski. Tonight, again, our guest is Harley Culkin, town board member. We were discussing a recent situation at the last town board meeting with the district attorney, Mr. Brian Kunze, and Mr. Culkin had an exchange regarding Pool Pack. And in fact, in our previous segment, Mr. Culkin described what Pool Pact is, which is just a pooling of money by rural counties for, in this instance, would be an insurance fund to defend against county lawsuits where they're the defendant. So anyway, we were just talking about the disclosures as far as figuring out what these premiums are with, for instance, Pool Pack or this pet money that you're saying. But you said that you've been having a hard time as far as figuring out or getting the budgets that you've requested. And in fact, if you do get them, you get them in some type of form that are very hard to digest.
Well, let's say, as an example, I want to know where all the pet money is. I want to know how much is coming to the county. I want to know how much they spent and where it's been spent. Well, if they just handed me a budget, I'm not an accountant. I'm never going to find it all. I mean, I could be there for months trying to dig this out. So I just want a simple question answered by somebody that's capable of giving it to me, and I'm working on that. In regards to what you just said, in regards to Pool Pack, I feel that a tremendous amount of money is spent to protect wrong things in Nye County. If we, the people, were advised by the media of lawsuits that are brought and how much they settle for and whatever, and why these things happen, and then they would be the government would be a lot more on the defensive of allowing these things to happen and go unchecked because they're covered up and Pool Pack pays for it. Well, you and I and all taxpayers are paying for this cover-up.
That's right.
The sheriff's office is out of control, like I said. Most of the lawsuits are because of the sheriff's office. That sheriff is costing us a lot of money that could be spent for the betterment of the people in this community to create jobs and so on.
Let me just to be clear, do you actually know that the sheriff's office is responsible for the majority of these lawsuits, or is this hearsay that you've heard from people that have told you that?
Well, I don't have a copy of all the lawsuits, obviously, but from people in the know, like I said, that Mr. Kunze told me, it confirmed what I said, that most of the lawsuits are from the county, from the sheriff's office. And so I know that they're coming from that mostly. The town only has one lawsuit, which is mine. But the county's got a lot of them, and like I said, they're mostly because of the sheriff and what goes on over there. And I've talked to many people. I know a lot of people that have lawsuits against the sheriff's office, and the county, so to speak, because of the sheriff.
Is it the natural inclination for the county just to automatically revert back to Pool Pack defense, I guess, or the lawsuit or the law firm that has been retained by Pool Pack? Is it just a knee-jerk reaction to say we'll kick it back to them since we've already paid for this premium, or are these lawsuits actually vetted and seen if there was any way to mitigate them before they go to Pool Pack?
Well, it should be up to our district attorney, to mitigate them ahead of time and see what happens. To my knowledge, our past district attorney definitely wasn't going to take no action. I mean, right. He was participating in covering things up, and they really don't care how much money they spend, to fight somebody that's been wronged. Mm-hmm. And now, when I was having a discussion with Mr. Kunze at our town board meeting, I actually wanted to explain to the public first the liability of the past, basically. Mm-hmm. And I know that Mr. Kunze is getting directly involved with the Pool Pack lawsuits and so on, and trying to eliminate a lot of the financial liability to the county. And I wanted to actually compliment him and bring it to the public's attention, but I couldn't get that far because he got a little defensive.
Well, I think that's a good point right now is, if he's taking over the workload, and really just because of the timeline that Law in Motion seems to have, realistically, isn't he dealing with Mr. Beckett's problems today? And do you feel as if Mr. Coonsey is actually taking his best foot forward as far as saying, let's get through all of this, let's get to a better time in Nye County?
Well, he is, but obviously, a lot of things come into concern. You don't want to alienate all the people you have to work with. I'm referring to the sheriff and the courts and so on.
Right,
So
right.
you're trying to deal a hand, work with a hand that you're dealt. But he's doing a pretty good job from what I've been hearing from people. He's trying to look at all his options and what he has to deal with, and trying to make this a lot better for the people of Nye County, and he's been doing that.
Okay, so on the contrary, you had said, well, I've called your office twice to discuss this with you because he had said, I have an open door policy, or at least my office does. Is it your experience that it wasn't addressed because maybe he's got so many things built up now, or is it really specifically we don't want to talk about pool packs in this county?
Well, that came about, the lively discussion came about because I asked him a question, and that was, what are the premiums cost in the county? The way he responded to me was rather indignant. And he could have said, well, we can talk about that later or something politely. Instead, he got rude, in my opinion. I feel that we have a lot of problems with the county, and so now that kind of,
Well, you do have a reputation as a rebel rouser.
set me off a little bit. So then near the end, when he starts talking about if you have any questions, give me a call, or if you need any information, I'd be more happy to answer it for you. Well, I just got through we all got to see that he wasn't going to give us any information, so to speak, because I asked him about the premiums, and he said, I'm not going to answer that. And then I've been to his office twice, and I left my card and said, I got some questions. I don't remember what both of them were about. One of them was about, in regards to, some people are concerned about our attorney costs and wanted to know if the district attorney's office could do it at a cheaper cost. And so I wanted to discuss that with him.
As far as them almost taking care of their own lawsuits.
No. This is strictly about, we pay an attorney to, like, we put stuff on our agenda, the town board agenda, whatever. Sometimes we have the attorney look at it.
I'm sorry.
Just to do the legal work for the
town.
town.
Right.
So some people feel that the county could service cheaper than what we're paying now. And so I wanted to discuss that with him, more in detail and stuff. At another time, he had told me that, in fact, after our argument, we had a nice discussion, at a later meeting, and I had mentioned that's why I wanted to talk to him about one of the times, and he said, well, I think that if you paid for a salary of one of his deputy DAs, that would work and be $100,000. And I'm thinking, well, let's see, I'd be lucky if I used 5 or 10% of the man's time, but you want me to pay his whole yearly salary? That doesn't seem too fair to me.
Right.
And so I
plus
believe
the other thing too is you'd have to look at conflicts too.
Exactly. That's what I got to look at. I'm going to end up having to pay someone else for legal advice anyway, or the town would, because he can't do everything because there'll be a conflict. It just doesn't work. I'm kind of thinking that maybe it's time the town hires their own attorney, because we're spending $200,000 a year. Okay, understand that, and I'm sure you do, being an attorney. Just like me, I specialize in certain things, but I don't do everything in my trade. And so sometimes you might have to go out. And so if we hired an attorney, naturally sometimes I might have to go out for someone that has expertise in a certain area that the one we hired don't.
Gotcha.
But even with these guys we do. So, we actually have like 2 segments working. We have one guy comes and does our meeting, and then we have another part of it. They have like 300 people working for this company that we hired.
The law office.
It's a pretty big law firm. They represent a lot of municipalities and stuff, so they're very good at municipal law. But naturally, my position is that we are a poor town, and sometimes in life you just can't afford the best. So I don't have a problem with them. It's just that we're spending a lot of money.
Well, it depends. I mean, a lot of times you see with small towns or see small organizations, you have to figure out fee structures that make sense according to what you can afford.
Yeah. Other than in salaries, of course, our 2 biggest expenses for the town, as I recall, are basically insurance and legal.
Right.
And it's killing us.
That might be any business, though.
Well, it could be. I'm trying to.
All right, we're going to take our next commercial break, and then when we get back, we'll kind of wrap all this up in a nice little package, okay? So we'll be right back.
Court Reporter with Stovall and Associates. Court Reporter with Stovall and Associates.
Rose
We're back with the Court Reporter with Stovall and Associates. Yeah, I have to disagree with you on that one. Anyway, so getting back to what we were discussing, as far as the legal and the insurance being a major cost for the town, and then also, as we've been discussing, as far as the county, is it the function of the district attorney's office to look at again, mitigating some of these cases, and in fact, do you feel as if that's some way for the county to save some money, and then ultimately also for Pahrump to better use their taxpayer contributions to the county?
Well, certainly. Like I said, it's the past that poor Mr. Kunze has to deal with.
Right.
And, his job is to try to eliminate a situation before it gets out of hand, but then he has to try to work with the sheriff, who's the cause of most of these lawsuits. And,
well, they also serve as defense for.
Yeah. So, but I mean, if he, the past district attorney's office didn't have too much trouble prosecuting people that they knew were innocent. They just went along with the program. Mm-hmm. That's my opinion, but I'm standing by it.
Okay.
I think Mr. Kunze, like I said, doesn't want to carry on like that anymore. But like I said, he has to work with people, so he's finding his way and doing what he can. But I think he's a very honorable man, and I voted for him, and I'm not sorry about it.
Right.
And I believe in the long run we're going to see significant changes in the district attorney's office that are going to benefit the community.
Sure. Well, and that's what I wanted to kind of talk about in this last segment here is he was there specifically to address the town board to say these are the changes that I've been making. These are the changes I hope to make, and this is what's been happening. So I actually wanted to talk to you about some of these things, like, for instance, the creation of a CASA chapter here in Nye County is an excellent idea, and what do you say, the Child Advocacy Center, I know it's something that we had previous guests also talk about. Things like, changing some of these domestic violence as far as the offender spending 2 days in jail, instead going out and doing some community service. I mean, these are all programs that Mr. Kunze seems to have been enacting. I don't really think that there's a lot of glory in these programs for him.
No, well, understand that those programs are basically about dealing with failure.
That's true.
And that's what he has to do. He has to deal with the poor economic environment we live in.
That's true,
And
yes.
he creates these problems. Now, it's my job as a leader on the town board, and it's also the commissioner's jobs to try to eliminate these problems. Like, people go out and when it's cold out and they want to collect jackets and things for people and so on. I'm trying to look further down the road. I'm trying to put them in a position where they can buy their own jacket.
Right.
Otherwise, I'm just going to, nothing gets fixed. So, like the town board and the county commission, we need to be focused on bringing jobs to this community and raise the economic level. This is an extremely financially challenged community. And in fact, last year the town board recognized that in a proclamation that we live in a poverty-stricken community. Mm-hmm. And we need to get out of that. And the county's not helping at all. The county's wasted a tremendous amount of money. They've taken no action to bring jobs and business to this town. Mm-hmm. I mean, they don't even have a package together. How many years have we all been talking about this? They don't even have a package together to entice business here. They've done nothing except talk and talk about how, the town and them need to communicate better. They live here just like we do, 3 commissioners. They know what's going on. They're not stupid. I don't have to tell them what's wrong. They know what's wrong, and they refuse to do anything about it and take any action.
Do you feel as if, without your fellow town board members and, I guess, and also citizens that want to, make these changes, how much power do you really have as a town board member to make the progression in Pahrump?
Not much, and that's what people need to realize. Right now, I believe, I can only speak for myself, but I believe the town board is trying to get in the mode of publicly alerting people of what's wrong here and trying to, shall we say, entice the commissioners to do the right thing. But if it doesn't happen, then the people of this community need to think very seriously about incorporating. Mm-hmm. Because we're trying things now. We're trying to take over planning and zoning, and we'll see how far we get with that. We're still up to the legislature, right. And we're in the process. We're looking at moving the boundary line. This town is trying to do a lot of things that no other board is trying to do before.
Right.
But if we're unsuccessful, there's only one alternative. I'm trying to do things that I think incorporation is redundant government. But if we fail at everything else, we're going to have to incorporate. This town must take control of its own destiny.
To be fair, when you're talking about taking over planning and zoning and these types of issues, as far as with the legislature, people have been saying, well, simply, we voted down incorporation, and this is the town board trying to backdoor us.
Well, first of all, there's 5 people on that board. And they're all elected by different groups of people, so to speak.
That's true.
You know, all the people who voted for me didn't vote for some of those
that's
other
very
people.
true. That's
Well,
very
everybody has a right to be represented. The only thing that some of those people did wrong when they went up to speak to Senator McGinnis and Fallon was they should have done it through the board instead of backdooring it, so to speak. They had every right to go up and talk to them if they wanted to. And by the way, they also talked to them about us moving forward with the taking over planning and zoning, so it wasn't just a one deal they were talking.
Right.
But because, you know, that's why, you know, we don't live in a democracy. We live in a republic. And a republic means that every group of people elect somebody to represent them. So we're not all alike. And people have to recognize that.
Well, that's the beauty of the town board elections.
But
Is
we
that
do-
everybody can vote for a candidate, and
Right.
therefore their candidate was really the person that they chose, and it wasn't based on district, it wasn't based on political affiliation. This is your candidate who represents what you want to see happen.
Right. And this is like a really significant board, in my opinion, because this is a board based on people who respect that you might not have the same opinion. They're not going to hold a grudge. They're not going to stab you in the back tomorrow because you didn't vote last night the way they wanted.
Right.
I mean, this is a very unique board from all the boards I've seen been here. And we are trying to do some things. But like I said, we need the community behind us. You know, it's not about necessarily always agreeing with what one of us does or whatever, but understand that we're there trying to do what's in your best interest. We should have your respect, and we need your support.
Do you feel as if, because of the diversity of the board, that progression is stymied in a way?
I just think that maybe some people might be trying a little too hard to scrutinize everything and whatever. You know, these are times where we need to, you know, be active fast. We got to get things done.
You need action.
We can't look at things and whatever. We got to get things done. And it's a new board. I mean, you know, you got to give them a little time to get the feel of things, whatever.
Sure.
But I think, you know, I see changes in it as far as, you know, understanding things and moving a little faster. But, you know, our meetings are pretty long, you know, 5 hours, whatever it seems like. Well, even with, you know, you go in there and you think something won't take very long, but, it, you know, like I said, everybody wants to make sure they're doing the right thing. I see a lot of heart and you know, put into these things.
Well, as everything, you know, that groundswell is going to start and everything will settle, and then, you know, hopefully you guys will be able to streamline the process a little bit too. But, I mean, let me ask you this, just in closing. Do you feel as if, you know, now 3 months in or a quarter into your position, do you feel that really the best intentions are from everybody in the board, and do you feel as if the public's been taking you guys in and saying, okay, I feel that this is a board I can communicate with, and in fact is going to carry through with their ideals?
I think that, you know, everybody in this board's wanting to do the right thing and work together and so on. I think the public sometimes gets a little off on a tangent, being they want you to do something, and if you don't do it, then, oh, would you change, they like to say, or you didn't do something. They don't seem to grasp it, that our job is to do what's in your best interest, not necessarily what you want at the moment. You know, like one of the hot topics, of course, is our town manager. Being as I have an opportunity to work with them, I see a lot of strengths that are necessary to this town. Is anybody perfect? No, I'm not either.
No, nobody is.
But I believe I have no problem working with him so far. And like I said, he has a lot of strengths that I find very positive.
Well, listen, I mean, in the position that
he's helped
in.
me with things that I've done. And you know, some people just get their mindset on something. But like I said to some people recently, I said, well, give me something that he's done wrong since this board took over, and they couldn't give me anything. Then I said, well, then I guess the board's doing its job of, you know, running that office.
That's right. Well, thanks for being on, Harley. I do appreciate it.
Wish we had more time.
Well, listen, I promise you I'll have you back on. The next time you get up, you in stirrups and trouble, we'll get you back on again.
Well, you know, I'm never afraid to
Probably
stand
next
up for
week.
the right thing's right for the people. So.
All right. Again, thanks for being on tonight. I do appreciate it. It's a pleasure every time you're here.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching tonight. We'll be back next week, Thursday, 6 p.m. See you then.
Court reporter with Stovall and Associates.